Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to the Bond of Love interview series on behalf of the Vaishnavi Ministry of North America. My name is Premarupa Madhavi Devi Dasi, and today we have the honor to welcome none other than Her Grace Gopimata Prabhu. Gopimata Prabhu, please. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Just a super quick intro for any of the devotees out there who don't know who you are. Gopimata Sandal grew up in midwestern US. In 1977, she traveled to London where she met Srila Prabhupada. She stayed there for 10 years in the ashram there, mostly doing sankirtan. Gopimata also served as a pujari and cook, performing with the Vaikuntha Players. Later, she married Vaikuntha dasi and moved back to the US, where she and her husband raised 3 wonderful sons. Gopimata Prabhu has been teaching yoga for over 30 years in Kansas, and she created Yoga with Heart. It's a teacher training school with a view to introducing yoga students to Bhakti. She lives on a 40-acre farm called Bhaktivana. Along with her friends and family there, she hosts regular programs to celebrate Krsna Consciousness with Kirtan, Prasadam, and philosophy. Gopimata hosts online classes and reading groups on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and other Bhakti philosophy studies. Thank you so much for taking your time today and for sharing with all of us your relationship with Srila Prabhupada, how you came into the movement, and for inspiring all of us. Maybe we can go all the way back, when you first went to London and met Srila Prabhupada, and maybe we can share one of your favorite memories of Srila Prabhupada.
All right. Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. And I'd like to offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who has beautiful lotus feet. That means that he is beyond the 3 modes of material nature that causes suffering in this material world. And he's a transcendental spaceman who can go anywhere in the material world to rescue the fallen souls. So we're all very, very fortunate to be able to have come into contact with such a very special teacher. And also I'd like to ask for the mercy of all the Vaishnavas. Without their kind prayers, it would be impossible to make any progress in this mission of human life to attain pure love of Krishna. So I grew up in a very small town in Kansas. My father was a doctor, delivered all the babies in town, and my mother was a nurse and a Methodist youth group leader. And I had 4 older sisters who helped to guide me. And one of them is a practicing devotee now. So Robin. And I remember appreciating the singing in the church, the feelings that it would evoke, but I was rather disappointed that they couldn't answer so many philosophical questions that I had. I remember going out to the forest alone to dance for God. That was some authentic experience when I was small. So, I really didn't feel like I fit in very well to the community there. I finished high school a year early, and I took a gap year, visited a sister who was in Europe. And while I was there, I found a book about yoga and really embraced that practice, just discovered it in my own way. And I took a long time before I found anyone else who knew anything about it or was teaching anything. Then I enrolled in the local university, Kansas University, and where, the flower power culture was blossoming then. So I explored all of that. I engaged in art, dance, and theater in the school. And I remember I had a roommate who's on her bookshelf, there was a Srimad Bhagavatam. I only realized years later what happened, but I saw the cover of the book had the picture of Mahavishnu with all the universes coming out of the pores of his body. And I remember just pondering that. I tried to look inside, but it didn't make any sense at all. So I just let that slide. And I remember that one time a group of students went to a clown workshop in Minneapolis, and Allen Ginsberg was giving a poem there. And he played his harmonium and with a drone chanted the Hare Krishna mantra. So also, I didn't know what was going on. It's something that I realized many years later what happened. So then at the age of 21, a girlfriend and I, Laura, we were invited to teach a dance workshop in England. And we decided to life event out of it by first hitchhiking around Europe and doing street clowning. And we gave away all our possessions. We made our own little backpacks, which would just hold our essentials, like juggling balls and masks and toys, and no change of clothes, as I remember. And then we decided that the day before embarking on this journey, which was to happen March 4th, so we were thinking we were going to March 4th to our destiny. We don't know what it is, but it's going to be significant. And so we decided to do a mime performance the day before called The Fool's Journey. And this was a story we made about a character named Who Is She, who became obsessed with discovering the meaning of life, finding out who she was. And so it's, when I looked back, I was surprised what we had imagined, because it began in a spiritual realm. There were all her friends were in white robes, like playing ball with these orbs of energy. And in the background, there was a coyote trickster who was playing little hand cymbals to create music in the background. And so while she was there, she finds a bunch of masks. She puts a mask on her face and is shocked as she looks through to see a world of duality. Its edges are there, and then there's a blackout. And then the scene opens again when she is in a small room with this mask stuck on her face. And so she is compact with this costume now, and she just doesn't know what to do. She begins sweeping dust from the center of this room out, and then sweeping it all back in, and then sweeping it out, very mundane, and, becomes disgusted with this kind of annoying activity. And then she just falls asleep and in a rocking chair, fatigued. And when she wakes up gradually, she hears the trickster playing these little hand cymbals, and it's reminding her of her past. And so she begins to ask, what, where, who, why, why? And then she jumps up and starts looking everywhere, like looking in the pages of books, looking behind trees, looking down the road. and is just searching. We're mining. She's searching through the forest and begins chanting, I am, Maya, Maya, Maya. So we didn't really know what Maya meant, but it seemed significant. And so we didn't know how to end the story. They do this little back-to-back dance and have what we call the weeping hee-hees, laughing hysterically and then crying and then laughing and crying. And so the next day, a friend drove us to New York City. We had an idea to stow away on a ship to go to Europe. But when we arrived at the shipyard and saw who our companions would be, we decided it was not a very good idea. And so we used the rest of our money to buy a plane ticket. And before we left New York, a young brahmachari met us in an underground somewhere and sold us the record, Radha Krishna album. He said George Harrison had helped with it, so that clinched the deal. And also we got the book Easy Journey to Other Planets. And so again, I loved the pictures, but I didn't understand any of the words inside, so I kept it close to me while we began to travel. And then when we disembarked, we just began walking. We didn't know where to go. We walked all day. And then at the end of the afternoon, we realized we had come back to the place we started. And so, just laid on the ground, weeping hee-hees. I remember looking at the sky for a long time and really asking, why am I on this planet? What am I even doing here? Where should I go? What's the point? And sometime later, we did begin hitchhiking through Belgium eventually, and we saw an old cathedral in the countryside with beautiful stained glass windows. We went inside, sat in the pews of this empty church, and there were gorgeous, stained glass pictures of Christ there. And so I remember sitting and crying to Jesus Christ, give me a clue. What is the meaning of this, of being here even? And there was attached to this cathedral was an old monastery where a family lived, very kind people. And the mom let us stay there in exchange for chopping wood. And she put us up in the playhouse that her kids used to stay in. So it was a very surreal atmosphere. There were little beds, little dressers, little tables, and the ceiling was very low. And I remember just sitting, looking through this book. I would look at the picture of Srila Prabhupada and think, something tells me that everything in my life has brought me to the point of finding out what this person has to teach. Mm-hmm. And and also in New York, we had an opportunity to listen to the record, and that mantra meditation really shook me to my core. It's like, what is it? What is it? So anyways, and a funny thing, the mother of that house, she told my friend, you will wear 2 braids and you'll be married soon. And she said to me, you will wear 1 braid, but you won't marry for many years. And which was true because my friend got into Native American practices. So 2 braids. And she was married within the year. And me, more, like the Asian Indians wear 1 braid. Mm-hmm. And so then last gasp chance for diversion, we tried to get a job in the circus. We went there was a little trailer. This man opened this little window and said, "No girls, go away." And so we gave up on that. And then we got to lift to Paris. So there, I saw there was an address for the temple on Le Source Street. So we entered the front door and immediately were inundated with Krishna's exotic atmosphere. There was a huge mural of, beautiful Sham Govinda in dark blues and purple colors, incense filling the air, these young, shiny-faced men jumping down the stairs singing. And I felt like I was home. So, and then they introduced us to Radha Parasishwara, the deities. And I remember thinking, oh, why did no one tell me before? God is a person. This makes so much sense. They gave me a handkerchief to iron for Krishna. And so while I was ironing, I was like in this time loop trying to understand, who did they say I'm ironing this for? And so that was a very nice meditation and kind of began devotional service with. And then they gave me some cartels to play. And I was thinking, oh, these are the hand symbols that wake you up and remind you where you came from. So we wanted to do yoga in the Prasadam room there, and they said, that's a no-no. We don't do things like that in public. And so they said, maybe you should go out to our place in the countryside. So there was a chateau, very beautiful ashram at that time. And we actually spent 2 weeks there. And people were talking a lot about how Prabhupada had come to save the world and needed us to help him. And after some time, my friend suggested, this is fun and all, but maybe we should get on with our plan and go to London. And I was of two minds. I didn't know if I wanted to stay and leave my friend, stay with all these crazy people, or go. But just then, a picture of Krishna jumped off the wall into my lap. And I don't know, there wasn't a lot of stuff happening in the building at that time, in the room. But anyways, that was a wonderful experience. She looked at me and said, or if you want to stay here, that's fine with me. But I decided to go with her. As we were leaving, one of the devotees stood at the door and said, just remember, if you take one step towards Krishna, he'll take 100 steps towards you. And I began thinking, this is so lucrative. Really, maybe I should do something like that. But I left. And then, as it happened, in London, there was another address in the small book. And so we went to 7 Berry Place. And there was a nice devotee there, Rohini Nandan Das, who, as I remember it, he told me this story that he said, I also was with the devotees for a little while, and then I decided to leave. And then I went mountain climbing. Somehow or other, I ended up hanging upside down by my boots off the edge of this cliff. And I thought I was going to die. So I prayed to Krishna, please just save my life. I promise this life will be for you. I surrender. And so just then, a young man came out of nowhere and pulled him up. And so there we were. And so that also made me think that, probably better if I just surrender now instead of until Krishna does something really scary to me. And so how fortunate that I decided to get into the VW van with the devotees and go to the manor at that time. I put a bead bag in my hand and said, keep chanting, don't stop chanting. And so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. And so the English yatra at that time, it was in the care of Jaya Tirtha and his beautiful angelic wife Manjuvali. And so the mood was quite settled and stable right at that time. And so Manjuvali, was the first person to usher me into the manor building. And she said, we'll get some nice service for you to do so you won't be too distracted by your mind. And so red flag. I was like, why don't they want me to use my mind? They want to brainwash me. But, she was oozing affection and kindness. I just immediately trusted her because she was a person who loved Srila Prabhupada very much. And then they gave me a service making flower vases on the altar. I wasn't very good at it. And the first opportunity I had when no one else was in the temple room, I began in a very awkward way showing Krishna some mime moves and asked if would you like me to do this kind of service? But I think he just laughed. It didn't seem very, very helpful. Anyways, over the next few months, I began to follow their morning program, and I was told that there was really an emergency situation that Prabhupada needed us to drop everything and assist in tagging some more suffering souls out there. And so I decided to try to help with that by doing book distribution. And so then one day, when I was in Berry Place in the bunk room where the Brahmacharis stayed, I heard a girl running up the stairs screaming, Prabhupada's coming! Prabhupada's coming! And soon. And even though we had heard that his health was not so good, he chose to come to London. And so, yeah. So then I had a very beautiful memory of Prabhupada on August 28th, 1977. All the devotees, there were a lot of people from England, Italy, France, Spain, Germany, maybe 300 or so. And so we all gathered at the back door of the manor. And the lovely kind of stained glass windows there, they threw open the door and Prabhupada's white Mercedes-Benz had arrived. And they lifted him out on a chair that they'd made into a kind of palanquin covered with satin. And as they brought him into the room, this deep wave of emotion swept through the devotees. They'd all been praying for weeks. My dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please cure Srila Prabhupada. And so many of the devotees were a little shocked to see him in that condition. It was surprising that he had agreed to travel like that. and even that he decided somehow to come to England because there had been a problem at the airport, some kind of delays, and they talked about maybe going to Italy or France instead. He said, no, I want to go to London. And so just to encourage the devotees, he really shouldn't have been traveling at that time. But he was hoping maybe later to go to America to help with the Varnashram Dharma project. So I can't even fathom how fortunate I was that I had arrived at that time and that he decided to come there. So, and then he was taken upstairs to his room, and they prepared a giant plate of fruit prasadam to offer him. He wasn't able to speak so much, but he said, "Is everyone all right?" So even in his condition, he was always thinking of our welfare like that. And I received a fresh fig off of that plate of Maha Prasad. That's the food that's been tasted by a pure devotee. And when I bit into it, it was I had never had a fresh fig before. It just burst into 1,000 delightful transcendental stars. It really surprised me. And, so it was like a double whammy that I got to taste something full of transcendental nectar. So, and then, I was going to talk about being in his presence. So, when at one point he was in the main temple room, all the devotees were crowded around, and like I said, he wasn't speaking so much. Tamal Krishna Goswami was telling, glorifying him, and while we were sitting there, I had a very unusual experience that I had never expected. I didn't know what to make of it at the time. That I had the feeling, very strong feeling, that he was sitting very close to me, and that he was looking through all the layers of myself that I thought were myself, my physical body, my mind, my false ego, looking right into my soul. And he was speaking directly to my heart about those things that I really needed to hear. So, in fact, I didn't remember later that he hadn't been speaking. I had to be reminded that he was not talking. But anyways, and so then as I was leaving, I immediately began to think, well, maybe, I'm just have such a desire to feel special. And this is my false ego imagining all kinds of things. But, as I wandered through the groups of people who were mingling there, I swear I heard 2 or 3 different people saying exactly the same thing, saying, I felt like he was sitting very close to me and he was telling me all the things I needed to know. He was looking at my soul. And so it let me know that it did happen. It did happen. And also that, no, I wasn't so special. That many people were able to experience this kind of thing with Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. And then there was a devotee, Vajahari, Krishna rest his soul. He was helping to organize the women's sankirtan for some time, and he helped arrange that I would take initiation. After Srila Prabhupada went back to India, they had an initiation ceremony, even though he wasn't able to conduct it himself. He was accepting disciples. And so that was in October. And so I was so grateful. And then there was a wonderful devotee, Kamaduk Prabhu, who arrived from India, and she was given the responsibility of heading up a women's sankirtan party in England. So under her influence, everything became very organized and very progressive, which was, so helpful, because it was tough for everyone when Srila Prabhupada actually left this planet. It's very, very deeply distressing and disorienting, and yeah. And then,
it was so nice that he would almost just come there to accept you, right? And give his presence and so forth. So it was beautiful. And I really loved what you mentioned the very beginning, your plea was all about Atato Brahma Jignasa, right? Like you asking, who am I? You just kept asking that over and over again. And truly connecting with Srila Prabhupada with just this picture and so many nectars to you shared. Thank you. Is this Sankirtan how you felt Srila Prabhupada engaged you in Krishna service initially?
yes, so I'll tell more about this. This Sankirtan project, it was, probably from 12 to 20 women that came together, off and on for 5 years about. And so we had a very tight morning program. We would have a cold shower, early japa, morning Bhagavatam class, Prasadam breakfast, and then we had a kind of a pep rally where we would chant the Shringadev's prayers and pray for strength to go out and do this very difficult service. So in the streets of London all day, every day. so we would try to encourage each other as much as we could. It was quite a bonding experience for these women to get charged up with spiritual Shakti so that they could manage this. And so taxis were loaded, these big black England or London taxis. We filled them up with boxes of books and paraphernalia, and then went out to meet people, to ask them to take something to read about Srila Prabhupada, something that he'd written, and we had to endure a lot of English rain and sleet, and quite often the police would stop us, because if we stood in one spot too long, they didn't like it. And so we would feel a big heavy hand on our shoulder and someone saying, "You're nicked, Harry," or else they'd say, "On your bike," if we got off. But if they did take us into the station, we would have to stay there for probably 2 to 12 hours. They called the temple and checked that we were bona fide or something. So I was a fairly introverted person, and I managed to continue by meditating on how all these people that I see are eternal spiritual beings with a relationship with Krishna. And so somehow or other, let me just give them an opportunity. And so sometimes we got to go with smaller groups of women to Guru Charna Padma, and I went to Iceland to do a project. We went through Europe, Scotland, Wales, and so later on, I did do some cooking, pujari work, sewing, and then fortunately the devotees Rasagya and Loy Taksha came to England, so they had a theatre group called the Vaikuntha Players, and it was very exciting, creative energy that they had, and we explored all kinds of options, like doing street theatre and mime and Krishna Lila, and so they really helped me to see that we could be playful in Krishna consciousness, and it was wonderful. And then, you know, in the mid 1980s, there was a lot of chaos while the movement tried to reaffirm that Srila Prabhupada was founder Acharya and what that meant. About that time, I met my husband, Ankottha. He had a kind of parallel lifestyle, doing the same types of service, and although he traveled to many different countries, but he is from Punjab and lived in England his whole life. So we moved to Detroit then at that time, and to a temple there. And after some time, it was a rather violent neighborhood in Detroit, and so there was a lot of difficult drug trafficking going on in the nearby areas. And one of my friends said, "Well, I'll take you out and teach you how to shoot." So I said, "I'm not raising kids here. We're leaving." So we went to Denver for 2 or 3 years, and then there was a plan to go to Florida. The Church of India and Abhiram had a business there. We thought maybe we could help with, and we got as far as Kansas. We stopped to visit, and then that other project fell through, and so we ended up staying here in Kansas. And so by that time we had 3 sons soon, and there were some devotees, a couple, Indranuja and Lalita Saki, who have worked with us in Detroit, in Denver, and in Kansas. We moved together, and so we all, along with some other very nice devotees, were able to get this property called Bhaktivana. I built a yoga studio there, and we were having classes, and now I actually live in that building. But my other kids are living out here. So the 3 sons, you know, they're grown, 2 of them with kids. They all love Krishna very much.
Very good.
So that's been exciting. And then when the kids got older, I began teaching yoga with a view to introducing people to the Maha Mantra that way. And I took some, you know, deeper studies. One time there was a workshop with the senior Iyengar teachers and many people who teach in the Midwest, and they had a philosophical discussion in which they revealed that they did not think ahimsa included vegetarianism. They're like, not necessarily. It's not a big deal. And I was like, even in your guru's book, he's saying this is non-negotiable. You know, this is an important part of yoga. So it kind of put a fire under me to try to introduce what the actual meaning of yoga is to the yoga community. It was growing in America at that time. And so I created this school, learning to teach anatomy and so many things. And we would utilize the Bhagavad Gita, use books by Edwin Bryant, different devotees, Yogeshwara and Ranchor, and so gradually a number of those students have really embraced the essence, and I'm very deeply grateful to them for trying to follow this to the end. So we are still able to do a local studio. We do intro to Bhakti classes, Bhagavad Gita, and they will attend our morning program on Zoom, weekly Kirtans, whatever we can do here. And other questions?
Yeah, and like you listen to that calling, and you really showed what true bhakti and what true yoga is, right? Connecting with the supreme. So thank you so much for doing that. People try to portray it down. So truly Srila Prabhupada's daughter, right? He didn't back down. He didn't walk down anything. These people, he was very convincing. What about Srila Prabhupada convinced you that you should dedicate your life to him? Like even now, after all these years.
There was one experience that was unusual. A friend who's a healer offered to do a past life regression with me, and in that, you know, she said, relax, go into the forest, you'll find a box, open the box, and what do you find inside? And I found this scroll with Sanskrit, and it actually brought out all this memory of, you know, who knows if it was actually a past life, but like deep frustration, shame, and regret that I hadn't had real absolute knowledge to share with people. And anyways, when I came back to, you know, waking life, I was just, there was a tsunami of gratitude that, oh my God, it's happened. I met a perfect master of Bhakti Yoga who has, you know, finally, after who knows how many lifetimes, actually given me what, you know, the deepest the deepest path. And so I really sobbed my deepest tears and realized what a gift I had. And also, you know, of course, the devotees that had been with Srila Prabhupada were such an inspiration. During the Sankirtan days, we had an opportunity to spend time with Mother Yamuna and Dina Tarane at their ashram in Berkhamsted, along with their cow, Bimala Prasad. And they taught through their example. We learned how to play the kartals softly, like Radharani's foot bells, how to clean the wallboards with Q-tips, not to let the ghee smoke, never to let the pots get black. And so we all laughed a lot, and Yamuna guffawed, and it was most wonderful. And I remember one time she was sitting on the stairs just above me and showing me a picture of Srila Prabhupada. And she said, so many emotions are here in the face of Srila Prabhupada, you can see joy, excitement, tenderness, fierceness, and she went on and on. And so experiences like that were so wonderful. She began to cry, and I was like, this person really, she's feeling it, she knows. And it was another time I visited them in Sharanagati, and they're having these beautiful kirtans. At one point she said, I can't lead kirtan anymore. I said, why? We need you to lead kirtan. She said, I am not able to not weep when I sing, when I lead kirtan. And I said, that's okay. We're all friends here. And besides, we're in women's bodies. We can probably get away with it. No big deal. She said, no, my sannyasi godbrother has forbidden me. And I don't know. And because, and so she did, appreciate that even Srila Prabhupada would often have, occasionally, he would show a little bit of his ecstasies, but he tried to avoid, so that, like neophyte devotees would not try to imitate in order to just get some kind of surface attention or something. And so, and then, that same visit, she was writing her memoirs, but the computer broke somehow, and she lost so much. And she was like, see, Krishna doesn't want me to. And besides, what I have to say is not as good as everybody else. There's so many devotees telling. It's like, no. How are we going to know what you experienced? Those people who came later, we need to know. And so fortunately, Dinatarni saved the day later by saving all her notes and actually writing the books. So,
thank you so much. And I think this is a great segue maybe to ask you, let's have a part 2 and continue hearing more, because there's so many more pastimes. I want to hear about your favorite quality, Srila Prabhupada. Just hear more about him, and how did you feel Prabhupada protected Vaishnavis in particular, and what message you have for the next generation regarding Srila Prabhupada. So I request all our viewers also to stay tuned for a quick part 2. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So, Srila Prabhupada,